when you play these games to try and shut out the disruptor challengers, not only are you doing it selfishly, but you're actually hurting people's livelihood, right? You're actually increasing their cost of care. You're decreasing their availability to get treatment or to get access to affordable health care. And it's not okay.
This little emerging biotech we're hypothesizing has to go to the insurance company and say, please put us on your formulary. And the big incumbents are going to go back to them and say, keep that new drug off your formulary. We've got our existing product. And if you keep them off and keep our existing product on, we're going to give you a better deal on this other drug that's in a totally different space.
Let's talk about going back to the negotiating, right? If you have a kind of like challenger drug, or you have a new and improved version of a drug, let's say you're a smaller or you are a smaller up and coming biotech company, how does the role of leverage factor into those negotiations? If it's a drug that's already been out there, but now you have a newer version to it, a lot of the distribution channel being controlled and influenced by the PBM relative to the amount of rebate that they can negotiate versus what's in the best value or to take the best care of the patient. How do those two things conflict with one another in that lack of pricing transparency negotiation you're talking about?
Well, as I said, the counterparties in the negotiation are the insurance company and the PBM. Let's think of them as one unit, and then the pharma company on the other side. And what the insurer basically wants is for these prices to be as low as possible on a net basis. Now, as we discussed, they may in fact have a perverse incentive to drive up the list prices, which is a whole other story. But when you think about, as you raised, a new incumbent, a new startup, say, that wants to challenge those incumbents, well, what that startup really wants is to get on the formulary. In other words, they want to go to these insurers and they want to say, look, we've got a much better product and you should cover our drug. Meaning, we want people who have your insurance to be able to get our drug. And unless you guys put us on your formulary, they won't be able to get it because then the customer would need to pay totally out of pocket. And so that's where you end up getting competition between the pharma companies and their competitors. This little emerging biotech we're hypothesizing has to go to the insurance company and say, please put us on your formulary. And the big incumbents are going to go back to them and say, keep that new drug off your formulary. We've got our existing product. And if you keep them off and keep our existing product on, we're going to give you a better deal on this other drug that's in a totally different space, because these big pharma companies have big portfolios. So when they're negotiating with the insurer and the PBM, they're able to wield the leverage of negotiated pricing across their whole portfolio. And that really gives them a weapon to compete with these smaller startups that may have really innovative drugs. This is one reason why little drug companies almost always have to end up selling to a big drug company. Very hard to get in that game.
The other thing that I see is the incumbents trying to fight back against the disruptor, in this case, the PillPack of the world, where we just saw this from September of 2019. SureScripts terminates contract with this Remi Health, hindering PillPack's access to patient prescription data. So I was digging into this. I was like, oh, okay, what's SureScripts? Oh, SureScripts basically is an industry solution. They have this alliance of all the incumbents that you would, right, all the known entities in the space here. From every, payers and PBMs and pharmacies and all the different vendors here are in this alliance. And then you say, oh, well, what is this kind of group here, SureScripts? Okay, they've got a leadership team. And then I say, well, who owns this thing? And then we go down to the board. And when you look at the board here, okay, we've got a guy from CVS Health. We've got a guy from Cigna. And then you have the community of pharmacists and chain drug stores. And this is the incumbents. These are the incumbents trying to say, oh, PillPack, you need this data to have customer information and these kinds of things to operate your business. Oh, well, we're going to cut you off. And so when I see the incumbent industry start to kind of take these, it's legal. I still qualify it as a cheap shot. And this is where the irony, and this is where I get worked up about the healthcare industry, right? Disruption, all these kinds of things. It's good. You can create money, you can create outsized returns and innovate and all these great things. And ultimately, you're delivering more value to the customer. The problem here is in healthcare, when you play these games, and I would call this a game, right? When you play these games to try and shut out the disruptor challengers, not only are you, doing it selfishly, but you're actually hurting people's livelihood, right? You're actually increasing their cost of care. You're decreasing their availability to get treatment or to get access to affordable healthcare, and it's not okay. So when I see this stuff happening, to me it says, okay, Amazon PillPack is onto something, because these guys are getting so scared that they're having to cut off like data flows and stuff to PillPack just to make their life a little bit harder. So, if we were to, let's just kind of go a little bit farther out, do some like wonky hypothetical stuff, right? We know that Amazon and JP Morgan and Berkshire are doing some kind of roll-up initiative here. If one of the things that we're talking about is pricing transparency, if you're able to say, okay, however many millions of people are employed by Amazon, JP Morgan, and Berkshire's portfolio companies, and if they create one giant self-insurance company, and then they go to the pharma companies and the wholesalers, and they say, look, and they are the payer in that scenario. They're self-insuring, so they are the payer, and they say, look, we're going to buy these drugs from you. We have millions and millions of people that need to be covered by this, probably tens of millions of people, definitely, actually. And all of the drug prices, we're going to get rid of this thing called list price, net price. It's just going to be the price. And that price is going to be available on PillPack. And that's where all of our employees are now going to be able to go and buy these drugs from. But we're also going to open that marketplace up to, think about what portion of the population is not insured, like 15%
Still in the tens of millions of people.
Right.
It's a sizable part.
I'm not saying that they're the ideal target user for this, but I'm just saying if you were to open up transparent pricing,
you also have people with high deductibles, which is increased under Obamacare, which is one of the things DA talks about in his article, where if the list price is going up and you have a high deductible, you're still paying more. And the idea of choice and the whole point of the high deductible was consumers will be more careful about where they spend their money. But if there's no transparency on what things actually cost, the idea of choice is kind of an illusion, right?
Right. If they had enough weight, which maybe they do, I don't know. But if they had enough weight to actually say, we are going to have a transparent marketplace, and maybe there are some like volume discount things, but by and large part, this is an open marketplace. People can come buy these drugs. You're going to sell them at a price that you're still going to make margin on. But this whole illusion of rebates and all these backdoor negotiations goes out the window. The insurance company can still cover a certain amount of, of the one price, the real price in this scenario. So it's not like you're getting rid of your insurance company, but we're going to use our demand and our leverage to decree that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they're working on or that they have enough leverage to pull that off. But do you think something like that starts to chip away at these games that we're talking about, right? Does like that pricing transparency, is that kind of, how you get that is the difficult thing. But if you can get it, it seems like not that it's 100% the silver bullet, but maybe it's like 80% the silver bullet, right? It starts to actually get some semblance of an even playing field. When we're talking about generics, when we're talking about branded drugs, what am I really trying to buy here? And if I'm the consumer, how do you enable me to make a decision about, quality versus price, convenience versus price, and empower the consumer?
At the end of the day, medicine is really complicated. It's very hard for the consumer to navigate on their own. And that's why consumers or patients often defer to doctors or to their insurance company. Most people want to go to the doctor. They want to be told what to do. Do I need this pill? I'll go get it. I'll take it. And they trust the advice they're given on that front. And so what you really want is for the patient to be guided through the healthcare system in a way that is going to maximize the quality of outcomes and minimize the costs associated with getting those outcomes. One vision of the future here is along the lines you're proposing, which is take this, JP Morgan, Amazon, Berkshire thing that Atul Gawande is now running, and imagine that, these guys as a big insurance company basically say, look, we've got all these people that it's our job to take care of. And why are we taking care of them? Because it's an employee benefit. When you work at these companies, you get great health insurance. So now as an insurer, what do we want them to do? Well, we want them as the insurance company to try and push down the prices that everyone is charging them. We want them to push down the prices that the drug companies charge them, and we really want them to push down the prices that hospitals charge them. So we want them to use that leverage to reduce the prices. At the same time, we don't want them to push down the prices if that's going to erode the quality of care. And so what I think you want at a very general level is a public policy regime that rewards insurance companies for achieving very high quality outcomes and spending as little money as possible. The one place you really see that right now in our system is in Medicare Advantage, which is Medicare Part C. This is an option you have when you're on Medicare, where as an alternative to getting traditional government Medicare, which they call, I forget what they call it, traditional Medicare or whatever, you have an option of buying Medicare coverage through a private insurance company. And what the government does is they go to that insurance company and they say, look, if you take care of Alex for a year, we're going to give you $10,000 for that year. And you know what? As long as you deliver care that is of a certain standard, if you save money on taking care of him, you can keep the difference. In other words, what you want is you want the insurance company's profit to be driven by how low they can push the prices down. And if you had this happen, then the insurance companies really become the force for good in the whole system. And the next article I'm going to write, as you'll see, is going to be about hospitals and how they set prices, which is also really interesting. But the bottom line there is that in many cases, hospitals have a lot of leverage relative to insurance companies. And so they're able to consistently raise their prices. And the insurance companies don't have a great way of fighting back. So what we really want, just to summarize, is we want the insurance companies in America, including the government, Medicare and Medicaid, to have more power to negotiate down prices. And you don't want them to have any incentive for prices to go up, which, as we talked about, they currently have in the system. That's really the problem, is they have an incentive for prices to go up.
Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.